narrator. Have you ever looked at a battlefield, at the lone victor standing tall amidst the heavy carnage, and realized that the one wearing the thickest, most impenetrable armor is often the one bleeding to death from the inside? We are conditioned by society to worship strength. We applaud the unbreakable, the cold, the fiercely independent. But what if I told you that absolute strength is not always a gift, but a psychological tomb? What if the most terrifying monsters we face aren't lurking in the shadows of the woods, but are born from our own desperate, agonizing need to never feel pain again? This is not a fairy tale. This is the raw anatomy of a shattered soul trying to survive its own ruins, and a love that refuses to look away from the wreckage. If this deeply resonates with the quiet darkness you carry within, please take a brief moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support is the very heartbeat that keeps these profound psychological explorations alive, giving us the immense motivation to create even more compelling journeys for you in the future. Wolf King Stories US warmly welcomes you to our sanctuary today. Pour yourself a warm cup of coffee, find a comfortable corner, drop your weary shoulders, and let the deafening noise of the outside world stop at the door. Today, we are not going to talk about shallow love stories painted in the rosy, naive hues of childhood dreams. We are going to dissect an emotion that is far more jagged, stripped bare, yet infinitely more profound and authentic. If you are a fan of the fantasy genre, particularly the werewolf realm, you have undoubtedly been suffocated by a heavily trodden cliché: the domineering alpha king, wielding destructive power, descending like a god to salvage a fragile, weeping heroine who perpetually waits to be shielded. That trope satisfies our most primitive human cravings for safety. But let us be brutally honest with ourselves. The real world does not operate like that, and human psychology is vastly more complex than those one-dimensional pages. Today, I invite you into an entirely different narrative, a story that violently shatters every mold you have ever known. Together, we will analyze love as a sanctuary through the intricate psychological lenses of two extraordinary characters, Andromeda and Octan. The core thesis I want to excavate with you on this journey is this: the greatest love does not blaze like a descended miracle. It is as silent, resilient, and enduring as a sanctuary. Let me paint their portraits for you. At one extreme, we have Octan, an alpha king grasping absolute authority, bearing the crushing weight of an entire kingdom on his shoulders. Yet, hidden deep beneath that shell of sovereign intimidation is an exhausted soul, nauseated by the endless games of the throne. He is a man who does not seek blind worship, but starves for an ordinary, quiet comprehension. At the opposite extreme stands Andromeda. Do not mistake her for an ornamental flower cultivated in a greenhouse. Andromeda is a lethal female warrior, a military commander whose body and spirit are crisscrossed with the agonizing scars of the Reaper. She is cold, razor-sharp, and disciplined like a heartless machine. Both of them, as they step into this narrative, are individuals who have violently turned their backs on the very concept of love. They are not searching for one another. They actively evade profound connections for entirely different, deeply rooted psychological reasons. The intersection of these two lives does not ignite with a passionate thunderbolt or a forced stroke of destiny. It begins with the mutual recognition of heavily lacerated souls. When we analyze Andromeda and Octan, we are not merely dissecting fictional entities. We are staring into a mirror reflecting our own traumas, our own desperate defense mechanisms, and the suppressed yearning to be healed that we bury deep within. How can a heart turned to stone ever beat to the rhythm of vulnerability again? How can true strength lie not in dominating another, but in having the agonizing patience to sit beside their pain in the dark. Let us turn the first page and step into the mind of a woman who used her own formidable strength as a grave to bury her emotions alive. Narrator. As we turn that first page and step directly into the chilling, desolate landscape of Andromeda's mind, we are forced to confront a woman who has weaponized her own suffering to survive. To understand Andromeda is to understand the tragic paradox of hyper-independence. Society looks at a woman like her, a ruthless, brilliantly tactical military commander, and sees a feminist icon, an unbreakable force of nature who needs no one. But if we peel back the layers of her ironclad discipline, we do not find a heart that is naturally cold. We find a heart that has been systematically starved of oxygen so that it would stop feeling the unbearable agony of betrayal and loss. Andromeda did not choose the sword because she loved the weight of it. She chose it because every time she dared to drop her hands and open her heart in the past, she was bled dry. In the brutal hierarchy of the werewolf realm, weakness is an immediate death sentence. For Andromeda, vulnerability is not a beautiful human trait. It is a fatal tactical error. We see this manifested in her every movement, her every calculated word. She operates with the terrifying efficiency of a heartless machine because machines do not mourn. They do not lie awake in the suffocating darkness, haunted by the ghosts of those they could not save. Her armor is forged from the ashes of her own trauma, an impenetrable psychological defense mechanism designed to ensure that no one will ever be close enough to inflict that kind of devastating pain upon her again. But what happens to a soul when it is locked away in the dark for too long? It begins to atrophy. Andromeda is surviving, yes, but she is profoundly, agonizingly alone. She has convinced herself that this isolation is the price of power, a necessary sacrifice on the altar of duty. She views love not as a sanctuary, but as an uncontrollable liability, a chaotic force that disrupts focus and demands a surrender she is absolutely terrified to give. It is profoundly heartbreaking to witness because, as an audience, we can see the cracks in her edifice that she refuses to acknowledge. We see the microscopic moments of exhaustion in her eyes when she thinks no one is watching, the heavy, silent sigh of a warrior who is so desperately tired of fighting a war that never truly ends. Andromeda. Pain is a teacher, and armor is my home. If I let down my guard, even for a second, the ghosts win. I need no one. Narrator. She is a woman trapped in a cage of her own magnificent making. To love Andromeda requires navigating a minefield of deeply entrenched triggers and trauma responses. It requires a partner who is not intimidated by her lethal edges, someone who will not attempt to violently strip her of her armor, but who possesses the quiet, unyielding patience to sit with her in the trenches until she feels safe enough to lay her own weapons down. And as she continues to barricade her soul against the world, the universe orchestrates a collision with the only man capable of weathering her storm. Narrator. Yet, while Andromeda combats the ghosts of her past by forging herself into a living weapon, the man destined to cross her path wages a profoundly different, though equally agonizing, war of attrition in the highest echelons of power. Enter Octan, the Alpha King. On the surface, he is the literal embodiment of the heavily trodden cliché we discussed earlier. A sovereign wielding absolute, destructive authority, surrounded by the dizzying opulence of royalty. But the brilliance of this narrative lies in how ruthlessly it subverts our expectations. If Andromeda's trauma is expressed through militant physical isolation, Octan's trauma is the invisible, suffocating isolation that only exists in a crowded room where everyone is bowing to you. He is drowning in an ocean of yes-men, political sycophants, and fragile noblewomen who look at him not as a man, but as a ladder to elevate their own status. Octan is nauseated by his own throne. We are invited into the deeply cynical, exhausted mind of a ruler who has seen the absolute worst of human and wolf nature. He bears the crushing weight of an entire kingdom on his shoulders, tasked with making impossible, bloody decisions that no one else has the stomach for. The tragedy of Octan's existence is that his supreme power has completely alienated him from genuine human connection. When every person you meet is either terrified of your wrath or scheming to manipulate your favor, how do you ever learn to trust? How do you distinguish a genuine touch from a calculated maneuver? Octan. They bow to the crown, not to me. They want a god to shield them, but who shields the god when he is bleeding? Narrator. Octan does not want to be a god. He is desperately starved for something far more elusive. An equal. He is utterly exhausted by the trope of the fragile, weeping heroine who perpetually waits to be shielded. He does not want a porcelain doll to place on a pedestal. He wants a partner who can stand shoulder to shoulder with him in the blood and the mud, someone who can comprehend the terrible burden of leadership without flinching. He has long since abandoned the naive fantasy of a soulmate. Much like Andromeda, Octan has actively evaded profound romantic connections, retreating into the cold pragmatism of statecraft. He uses his sovereign intimidation as a shield, projecting an aura of untouchable supremacy that keeps everyone at a calculated distance. But beneath that terrifying alpha exterior is a man who is quietly begging for a moment of rest. He yearns for a silent sanctuary, a space where he does not have to be the king, the general, or the savior. A space where he can simply be a flawed, exhausted man without the fear of his kingdom collapsing in his absence. It is a deeply resonant psychological portrayal of the loneliness of leadership, mirroring the reality that those who are the strongest for everyone else often have absolutely no one to be strong for them. His soul is a hollowed-out cavern of duty, waiting for a spark that he firmly believes will never come. Narrator. When these two deeply entrenched, heavily fortified fortresses inevitably collide, the resulting impact is not a fairy tale spark of instant romance, but a slow, cautious navigation through a landscape of mutual devastation. This is where the narrative elevates itself from a mere story to a profound psychological study of trauma and healing. The intersection of Andromeda and Octan is initially marked by intense friction, suspicion, and a clash of supreme wills. They recognize the dangerous suppressed shadows in each other, and it terrifies them. Andromeda sees in Octan the ultimate threat to her absolute control, a man powerful enough to breach her walls. Octan sees in Andromeda a lethal, unyielding force that refuses to submit to his authority, challenging the very foundation of his sovereign existence. But it is precisely this refusal to submit that acts as the catalyst for their extraordinary bond. For the first time in his life, Octan is confronted by a woman who does not want his protection, his crown, or his power. Andromeda demands nothing from him, and in that stark nothingness, Octan finds an oxygen he has never breathed before. Octan, you look at me, and you don't see a throne. You don't even look afraid. Andromeda, thrones can be broken, Your Majesty, and fear is a luxury I buried a long time ago. Narrator. Similarly, Andromeda realizes, with a slow dawning sense of wonder, that Octan is not trying to conquer her. He does not view her lethal scars as a tragedy to be pitied, nor does he try to forcefully dismantle the armor that has kept her alive. Instead, they begin a silent, profound dance of mutual recognition. They do not communicate through grand, poetic declarations of love. They communicate through the quiet, absolute reliability of their presence. This is the true essence of love as a sanctuary. It is the realization that true healing does not come from a savior swooping in to magically erase your pain. True healing occurs when someone simply pulls up a chair in the darkest, ugliest corners of your mind and refuses to leave. Octan provides Andromeda with the one thing she has never had: a safe harbor where her hypervigilance is no longer required. He proves to her, through consistent, unyielding patience, that her vulnerability will not be met with betrayal. In return, Andromeda offers Octan the raw, unvarnished truth. She grounds him, cutting through the political noise and the sycophantic illusions of his court, offering him the profound relief of being deeply, truly seen as a mere mortal. Their romance is a slow, agonizingly beautiful process of unlearning their defense mechanisms. It is a love built not on the fragile foundation of passion, but on the indestructible bedrock of mutual respect and shared endurance. They do not fix each other. Rather, they hold the space for each other to heal themselves, proving that two shattered ruins can, piece by piece, build a fortress of comfort and belonging together. Narrator. It is within this quiet, sacred space of mutual unmasking that we finally unearth the profound truth lying at the very core of this narrative. A truth that reaches far beyond the boundaries of fantasy and strikes at the heart of our own human experience. Andromeda and Octan compel us to fundamentally redefine what it means to be strong. We spend our entire lives building walls, accumulating armor, and practicing the art of detachment under the false impression that this is how we protect ourselves from the inherent cruelty of the world. But this story whispers a radically different philosophy. True, terrifying strength does not lie in how effectively you can shut the world out, but in having the unimaginable bravery to let just one person in. The journey of the Alpha King and the scarred female warrior is a testament to the agonizing courage it takes to surrender. To look at another human being, hand them the blade that could destroy you, and trust that they will lay it down. Love, as portrayed in this masterpiece, is not a miracle that descends from the heavens to cure all ailments. It is a deliberate, daily choice. It is the grit to stay when the trauma rears its ugly head, the patience to weather the defensive storms, and the profound grace to love someone exactly where they are, in all their shattered, jagged glory. In finding a sanctuary in one another, Andromeda and Octan did not lose their formidable edge. They found the emotional anchor that finally gave their strength a purpose beyond mere survival. They teach us that our deepest wounds do not disqualify us from experiencing profound love. Rather, they are the very maps that guide the right person directly to our souls. As we close the book on this extraordinary psychological journey, I want you to sit with that thought for a moment. Look at the armor you wear every single day. Perhaps it is time to realize that you do not have to carry that crushing weight entirely on your own. There is a sanctuary out there, whether in another person, in your own self-acceptance, or in the quiet realization that vulnerability is the ultimate form of bravery. Thank you for walking through this dark, beautiful landscape with me today. If this exploration of Andromeda and Octan's profound connection has stirred something within the quiet corners of your own heart, please remember to subscribe, like, and leave a comment below sharing your own thoughts on what constitutes a true sanctuary in love. Your engagement is the lifeblood of Wolf King Stories US, empowering us to continue diving into the deepest, most complex narratives the literary world has to offer. Until our next journey, keep your heart open, even when it is terrifying. The sanctuary is always worth the surrender. In this profound encounter, the narrative of Andromeda and Octan masterfully deconstructs the romanticized myths of absolute power and hyper-independence. It reveals that the most impenetrable armor is often forged from the deepest pain, whether it is Andromeda's physical militarization against betrayal or Octan's psychological isolation amidst the sycophancy of his court. Their journey is a poignant reminder that true love is not about magically saving someone from their demons, but about possessing the quiet endurance to stand beside them in the dark. When these two heavily fortified souls collide, they do not attempt to forcibly dismantle one another's defenses. Instead, they offer a rare, non-judgmental sanctuary where hypervigilance can finally rest. They demonstrate that the ultimate expression of strength is not emotional isolation, but the terrifyingly brave act of surrender, handing over the power to be destroyed while trusting the other person to lay down the blade. In our modern world, where relentless self-reliance is heavily glorified, their story serves as a profound psychological mirror. It urges us to recognize that our deepest scars do not make us unlovable. They simply require a love built on the indestructible foundation of mutual respect. Andromeda and Octan found their salvation not by fixing each other, but by holding space for their shared humanity, proving that even the most shattered ruins can be carefully rebuilt into a fortress of profound belonging. The deepest lesson drawn from this story is that vulnerability is not a weakness or a tactical error. It is the absolute pinnacle of human bravery. We navigate a society that often equates emotional detachment with invincibility, teaching us to build walls to protect ourselves from potential pain. However, true strength lies in having the courage to let the right person see your exhaustion. You can apply this to your life today by actively shifting how you approach emotional struggles in your relationships. Stop trying to be the flawless, unbreakable warrior who carries every burden alone. Allow yourself to be seen in your moments of fatigue. Conversely, when a loved one is hurting, resist the urge to immediately offer solutions or fix their trauma. Instead, practice the art of simply holding space. Pull up a chair in their darkness and offer your quiet, unwavering presence. By proving that you will not flee when their armor cracks, you help build a real-life sanctuary based on trust rather than perfection. What is one simple action or words a partner or friend can offer to make you feel truly safe when you are going through a difficult time? Please share your perspective politely in the comments below. We would love to read your thoughts and create a space where everyone can learn from each other's experiences. If this content resonated with you, please hit the subscribe button to support the channel. Your encouragement gives us the motivation to keep producing deep, high-quality literary explorations for you.